good afternoon, good evening, good everything, wherever you are on the surface of the earth at this very instant. Yes, we're back. Did we ever leave? You know how we say it on the show. This is where we come to lean on one another's experience to forge a positive path. I call this my safe space. Welcome, yes, to the Word Cafe Live Show. How are you? What is it like with you at your end? Well, yes, the earth is amazing this period. We are in this unique moment of existence. There's so many things are happening in, I mean, just like that. Before you say Jack Robinson, as we say it, and things begin to just and all of that. Well, we're here again. Yes. To gist, to talk, to lean on one another. I have a special guest in the house today. Yes, I know for a while you've not seen one or two people on the show, but I have a guest in the house today. Her name is Mercy. Mercy Ohia Riako. I hope I got it correctly. When she comes up, she's going to say something and all of that. Mercy's she's how do I describe her? She's this bundle of energy, She's full of joy. She's Don't worry, when she comes up, you'll see her. She's boisterous, more or less. And she's a military wife. She's a coach. She's a speaker. What else again? She's so many things in one person. Well, enough of all of that. I'm going to bring her on so that we'll see her and we're going to pick it up from there. Where is she? Where is she? And there she is.
Here I
Hello.
am. Hello, Coach Amachree. Thank you so much for having me on. And did I butcher your
My
name?
pleasure.
Is
No,
that
it's okay.
Coach
It's okay. But
Isoboye?
it's pronounced
Yes.
Amakri. Amakri.
Amachree. Amachree. Okay,
A
thank
lot
you.
of people, couple of people see the Amakri. Yes, yes. Couple of people see the name and they pronounce the CH like tree. But as I know, it's Cree.
Uh-huh. It's Cree.
Actually, when you go into the etymology of my name, it has a lot. But I'm not the one on that hot seat today. It's Mercy. Mercy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversations
All right.
today.
So before you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, now are you having issues with your earpiece? I mean your microphone? Is there a way you can adjust it a little bit? It's like there's this break when you try to speak, it breaks. Can you check it?
Hmm. Okay. I'm using my computer speaker. How is
Ah,
that?
okay, fine, better. It's good now.
Okay.
It's good now.
Okay.
So let's get to meet this wonderful Mercy. I know I didn't pronounce your surname properly. I want you to say it so that we're going to pick it up from there.
I was laughing too because I probably won't say it properly either. It's Ohariak. My husband always gives me flack for not knowing how to pronounce his last name. And now my last name, it is an Igbo last name. I grew up a Yoruba person and I tend to put that Yoruba accent on
Mhm.
everything. So, but Ohariak is how I
Mm,
pronounce it.
but it's okay. It's a Oheriako. I think that's
Yeah.
the right word.
Ohariak.
Oheriako. Let me bring a
Yeah.
little bit of the Igbo theme from this side. Good to see you. Good to see you here on the show. So who is this Mercy? Let's get to meet her. Who is she? Who is she? If somebody bumps into you like that, who is Mercy? Who is Mercy? Let's get to it, Mercy.
Mercy is just mercy. I am a unique individual who has just been shaped and fashioned in all kind of gloriousness. I tell people I am a rolling stone currently gathering moss wherever I am. And the thing about rolling
Mm,
stones is that we have a certain polish to us. I was born for
mm-hmm,
transitions. My whole entire life has been a series of transitions one way or another. And I think we all go through life transitions, but it's one of the critical markers of my life. And it's one of the reasons
mm-hmm,
why my experience and the things I've been involved in life is so diverse because I've had to be resilient and adapt to wherever life, puts me and where I find myself. So a rolling stone currently gathering moss in Jacksonville, Florida.
wow. we know Rolling Stones not to gather moss, or as it were, but you are gathering amazing. And now, when you talk about transition, when you say transition, you're talking about change here. The meaning of the word transition comes up in any conversation. What comes up to our mind, our consciousness is change. So more or less, Mercy is a ball of, should I say, changes, and she's always like navigating her way through these changes effortlessly. And that is one aspect that caught my attention about your personality and bringing you here on the show. Now, where are we going to start about this, your transitions and your changes? W- where do we start from? Maybe I look at it from, you're a military wife, so let us begin from that point. How did you get to that point?
In the beginning was the word, and it was mercy. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and that shameless plug for your in the beginning video, that was really amazing. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
sharing that with
thank
the
you,
world.
thank you,
Thank
thank you.
you. So, military spouse. I met my husband in church. We attended the same Redeemed Church in Virginia. A lot of
Okay.
people often think we met in the military because I am prior service as well. I was
Mm-hmm.
still in the service when we met, but we actually met in church. And
Okay.
my story of how I joined the military goes back to high school. I completed my high school in the United States. My family migrated to the States um, a long time ago. I was a teenager at the time
Mm.
and completed high school here. In my senior year of high school, we had those recruiters, they would come to kind of the middle class, lower economic
Mm.
status schools and pitch the opportunity to join the military as a way, to better your life
Okay.
and, kind of get out of that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to our school and
Mm-hmm.
made an offer to sign up to take a particular test called the ASVAB test. It's a battery exam for the Armed Forces Services. And the goal of that test is to try to say, what kind of job you would get and things like that. And in exchange for that, you would get a day off from school. And I was like, okay, I'll take the test just to get the day off from school. I had no intentions of joining the
Mm.
military. And then I signed up for the test. I took the
Mm-hmm.
test and I had the highest score in the school. And then the recruiter started every lunch. They would come at lunch and be like, join this, join that. The Army recruiter would try to get me, join this, join that. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not interested in military. I just wanted a day off. I got the day off. And I had this one
Mm.
recruiter. She was a Filipino lady. And so she would talk to me
Mm-hmm.
about her Philippine experience, that third world country type of experience, that was similar to my Nigerian experience of growing up. And she had a little bit of a connection with me. So during lunch, I would stop by her desk and, chat it up with her and then go to lunch. And as it were, one
Mm.
day we had that conversation, and then I went to sit down at lunch, and one of my friends at the table goes, I don't know why she's wasting her time trying to convince you to join the military because you could never make it through boot camp. And and if you know my personality, that was not even
And it's like
enough
that
to move me.
that triggered
No,
you.
but it was the trigger that I needed in that moment. Even though I'm someone who usually is internally driven, I I'm not very competitive at all. But when she said that, it struck a chord in me. And I was
Mm.
like, what do you mean I can't make it through boot camp? And I understood where she was coming from. I was like this tiny little thing. And um, I thought I was going to be the world's first shortest supermodel. Like that just was the space I was in at the time. And so that's where she was coming from. She didn't really mean it as I couldn't survive it, but I internalized it that way. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to join the military and I'm going to make it through boot camp. And that's how my journey to joining the military started. I was
Mm.
I graduated high school at 17, and so I needed my parents to sign for me to join because I was still considered underage.
Underage.
And
Okay.
the recruiter, yeah, and the recruiter, who is a Filipino lady, came to my house, ate jollof with my mom, and
Mm.
and in being relatable with this immigrant experience, was able to convince my mom, who at the time was going through a divorce from my dad, to have her first daughter, her 17-year-old daughter, join the military. The army is
Mm,
of all branches.
mm.
And so she signed the papers, and I couldn't go to boot camp until after I graduated, which was later on in the summer. So she was seeing me every
Okay.
day. I would attend drills once a month. It was the Army Reserves. And in her
Mm,
mind, she just felt like that was the
okay.
military until I had to leave for boot camp
Mm,
in the summer. And she was like, "Oh, no, you can't go. You're going back to Nigeria." And everyone around us was also like, "Oh, no, why would you send your daughter to boot camp? They're doing all of this to them," and, all of that. And I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm going." This is even making it
mm.
more real for me that I needed to go. So, and that's how I joined the army.
Oh,
Uh,
so what?
yeah,
So what was it like? The journey and all of that. What was it like for you?
yeah, it was not as difficult as everyone kind of made it to be, but I think some of that was because of my background, growing
Okay.
up in Nigeria,
Okay.
experiencing, a level of difficulty and hardship. I think that prepared me for that. Boot camp was 13 weeks long. You got up at 4 o'clock. You went for all this long, marches and all of the trainings and all of that. But it wasn't something that was super crushing. I had the nickname of Private Kool-Aid because I was always smiling. I think in my mind, I knew it was a mind game to try to get you to break down. And I just wasn't going to let, that
Mm,
happen to me. And I'm like, it's just 13 weeks. There is an end in sight. I just have to endure this for 13 weeks. Okay, that's fine. And that helped a lot in kind of reorienting, what this experience was about. It was very intense physically, but and
okay. So you you
to a
you you
degree
you you
mentally.
spent practically 13 weeks away from home, from your mom.
Yeah, I did. And
Oh,
then after that,
okay. Now go on. Go on. Sorry. Sorry.
no, I was just going to add that after the 13 weeks initial training, I had to go for another training, an advanced initial training to learn what my job would
Mhm.
be. And that was another 8 weeks.
Mm. So what was your job? What was it like? What did you do in the military?
Um, so
Hello, Mercy. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
what a shame. We have a little network issue there. Hello, Mercy. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mercy.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're back.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Sorry for the little
Don't
glitch
worry.
there. So I said, what did you do after your boot camp and all of that? What was your job now in the military?
Yeah, my military story is two parts. When I say I was born for transitions, I really was. This is the
Mm,
first part of the story, which was with the Army Reserves. And my job there was a carpenter and a bricklayer with the Army.
whoa.
um,
Oh,
yes. When
I mean,
when
for a
I took the
lady too.
test, listen, when I took the test, I scored really high, and the recruiter told me I would be a nuclear engineer. She says, "Oh, it's a hot field, a hot billet, and we're looking for people to fill it, but we can't get people to score
Mm,
high enough on the battery test to be nuclear engineers. So I'm going to get you in as a nuclear engineer." And that was in alignment with kind of where I wanted to go in the future. So I was like, okay, sure. And we started the process. And I wasn't a US citizen then. And she thought she could give me a waiver to access top security clearances in the United States. And she
mm,
couldn't get me a waiver. And then she says, okay, no worries. I can't get you a waiver for that. But I have another job as an engineer. And you would get a sign on bonus. And the school is not too long to where you would be back in time to start your first semester of college. And you would only miss a semester of college. And so I didn't ask what type of engineering that would be. And it was
Okay.
civil engineering, and it was carpenter
Mm.
and bricklayer.
So how did you manage that? Civil engineering. So how did you manage that?
um, that was probably tougher than boot camp. I still have calluses in my hand from cement work and from splinters from picking up wood. And I think there's a movie. I think it's like Clueless or Legally Blonde, and I had one of those moments when the my instructor told me to stop using lotion on my hands because they were too soft, and I'm like, what do you mean stop using lotion on your
Mm.
hands? Like these two things is not computing for who I am and my personality. But um ultimately, I
Mhm.
mean, once again, rolling with the changes and being adaptive in whatever environment you find yourself. I've always had that strong sense of resilience and that strong sense of being adaptable. Once again, as I said, my life has been full of transitions and
Mhm.
transitional moments. And they weren't little transitional moments. They were
Mm.
like move from Nigeria to America. Even in Nigeria, the whole time we were there, we lived on the mainland, we lived on the island. We were always moving. For some weird reason, my family was just always in transition. So this was just another
Mm.
thing that I needed to overcome. And I told myself, okay, not only am I going to do it, I'm going to do it good. But then as soon as I get a chance, I'm quitting, not quitting because then I can't quit. I signed a contract, but I'm going to transition to another job or another position.
Mm.
And so I
Mm.
made it through the
Mm.
training. I went back to my unit. I did a couple of exercises. I was
Yeah.
part of the team that went to build this bridge to nowhere in Alaska as part of our
Mm.
exercises. So I I've just always had that outlook in life. Younger days, I didn't have a word for it. Back then, I didn't have the vocabulary or the self-awareness to really understand, the things that were happening in the moment and how they were shaping my story or my life. But I just
Mm.
always had a sense of I can do this, and I can do this well, and it needs to get done. And so I'm going to get it done. And that's what that was for
Beautiful.
me.
Now, I see you have this outlook to life, like bring it on kind of outlook, even no matter how messy it is, because you're not mercy, you are mercy. If you understand what I mean by
Mhm.
that, as in no matter what it is like. So you have this outlook. Now, can you, from your spectrum, from your perspective, share with my audience what it is like when things come at you, like life throws all these curveballs and how do you respond to it? How
Yeah.
should you respond to it from your perspective?
Yeah. You start with your core. And that I didn't grow up a Christian, but faith has given me a lot of, I will say, structure to who I am and better understanding how God created me. We've all been equipped with things about our personality that are necessary for us to adapt in whatever situation or whatever environments we find
Mm.
ourselves in. Um, I always say that inherent within every strength is a weakness. And so don't over lean on your strength, understanding that sometimes your strength can be a weakness. I am a very adaptable person, but I have to be careful not to be laissez faire and not to acquiesce when I need to push in. There are times when I need to push and say, I'm not giving up on this. And there are times when I have to say, you know what, roll with the punches, move on to the next thing. It's understanding the moments that requires us to roll with the punches or move on to the next thing. And that require a level of self-awareness. It requires you understanding your core of who you are. I think I'll pause.
So sorry, guys. We've been having this. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So sorry. The network has been fantastic, but it's okay. Go on. I lost you there when you were talking about, your attitude to life and all that, your response to life. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, no worries. And so there was something that I had that I didn't have the vocabulary to describe what it was. And I came up on this book about Marcus Aurelius, and it's this idea of Stoicism. And the core of that principle is that you control what is only in your realm to control. And he makes this illustration about every event having two handles or two
Mm,
levers, as it were. One of the levers you can control, and one of the levers is out of your control. And it makes an example about um, a brother who offends you. And he's like, in that situation, the lever you can't control is the offense. One, because it is gone. Two, because it is in the
mm,
realm of your brother. The lever you can
mm,
control is how you respond to that event. When we were in Nigeria, my mother, she's a very industrious woman. She was a teacher in Nigeria, but over the summer she would just find herself in so many different trades. One of the summers she went to learn, um, she went to fashion designing school. Another summer she went to like a cosmetology school in Nigeria, and one of the summers she decided she was going to get
mm,
into trade, and she would travel to Aba to go and buy
mm,
shoe and bag and then go sell it in trade fair and Aswani and stuff. And that was her. And I was about 10 or 11, and my younger sister was about 3 years old. And she would go in the morning and return later in the day. And we would be outside playing all day. She'd leave instructions on things to do and
mm,
all of that. And I'd be playing with the neighbors. And then, of course, it'd get late and everyone would go to their, different apartment or whatever. And our apartment was on the second floor and it overlooked like a hill. And an Okada, we'd have to ride Okada to get into our area of town. And the Okada would bring people down and they would get off on the top of that
mhm,
hill. And I could see from my balcony who was getting off. And so after everyone's gone, because while I'm busy, I'm not thinking about my mother is not home. And then after everyone's gone to, their different homes and going to have dinners, it'll dawn on me that, oh, my mom's still not back. And it's starting to get dark. And so I would sit on that balcony and start looking out for every Okada that comes. Is that my mom? Eventually the sun would go down. Eventually it would get dark. And I can't see who's getting off on the Okada. And so the light would come on, and I'm like, is that her? Is that not her? I wait a few minutes, she doesn't come. And somewhere in there in my mind, I would play this scenario about what if my mom doesn't come back home? Like my mom and I never had a conversation about if I don't come back home, do X, Y, and Z, right? In her mind, she just knew she would
mhm,
always come back home. But I would sit there and I would say, what if my mom doesn't come back home? I would say, well, I know where she keeps her money. And so we would go to bed. We would wake up in the morning. I would take the money. I would get my sister on a bus and we would go to my grandmother in Shogunle and then we would be okay. And the moment I went through that process of things I could control, I would just forget about sitting on the balcony.
mm,
And I would just go on inside and get my sister ready for bed and just continue to do things. And lo and behold, she would come. I had no language for that. I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't understand the impact of going through that exercise. It's the same way in life. We have two levers to deal with whatever situation comes our way, the levers of what we can control and the levers of what we can. The most important thing is that we're choosing the right levers. And when we choose the right levers, then we're able to see a way out. We're able to have a vision and we're able to have clarity to stay focused on what needs to
mm.
happen in this moment. So,
Mercy, we've been having this break in transmission. It's just going like these
Mm.
glitches here and there. Can you? Hello, Mercy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yes,
Okay.
I mean, you really forgive me because the network has been sort of a huge challenge this evening, but we still need to
Hmm.
pull through on this conversation. And hearing what I mean, if I got you correctly, because I was getting bits and pieces here and there. You were talking about levers, what you can control, what you cannot control. The minute you
Hmm.
have an understanding of what you can control, then you more or less you are in control, even if you know that the other bit of it, I'm not in control. Just knowing that I am not in control gives me a level of control, because I know I have control over. And the truth is, a lot of us don't see life this way. We just look at it and it's like, we frown. It's like, why me, kind of thing. And we just have like, we want everybody to pity us, and all of that. You try to look for, that party that will pity you and all of that. But from what you're saying, it's like, no, get a hold of yourself. Those things you can control, hold. Those things you cannot control, excuse me, you know that you cannot control them now. So that gives you a level of, should I say, knowing, that
Hmm.
puts you in control. Now, there's this thing about timing with you, and it's like, when it's time to do something, and when it's not time to do something. I know, listening to you in one of our conversations, as a family now, you took something on timing that blew my mind. And I want you to share with my audience, how do I how did I frame that question? I know I sent it to you, and I want to frame it correctly. Should Is life transmitted via time, or time reveals life? How should I approach it? How should I embrace it?
Yeah. Light, and it is both. It is, life is both transmitted via time and also revealed through time. And
Mm-hmm.
when we say life, in my mind, life is like chunking of experiences, in the time
Mm-hmm.
dimension. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
life is all of our experiences in different time dimension is what make up our life. And so the experience themselves are transmitted, via time. The scripture even tells us that time and chance happens to them all, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in time we have opportunity to experience things and experiences that are available to us in time.
Mm-hmm.
Time
Yep.
transmits that to us. There are certain experiences that I cannot have, as a 5-year old that I'm having now because time, just natural timing has passed. But then the revealing part of time is really a retrospective action. Time reveals in retrospect. Time reveals when we're able to now go back or look back and reflect and say, oh, that's what was happening in time. The glimpse that we get now in the
Mm.
current experience is always limited because we do not have the view of everything tied together. And
Mm.
there's another aspect of time that is prospective, and that's where we say vision, right? Where some things are afforded for future time, but it is necessary that we make decisions that are congruent with what is appointed for future time. And that's that dimension where we have to press in to understand what is for the future and how do
Mm.
I implement it and start making decisions today that lays the foundation for that future. So it reveals retrospectively and also prospectively, but
Mm-hmm.
it is both transmitted. Life is both transmitted via time and revealed also through time. So that's how I look at that through my life experiences and the things I understand about life.
Yeah. Looking at the definition you just gave now, you introspecting or retrospecting, I beg your pardon, and prospecting, like backwards and forwards. You know,
Hmm.
a, a good number of us don't see it that way. We don't see it that way. I was I saw a movie lately about Jeff Bezos, as
Mm,
in how he got into his business and all of that. And he went through it following what you just said now, but he put it on what he called the regret management framework.
mm,
Yes,
mm,
like mentally projecting into the future. If I don't take this decision when I turn 80 and I look back, retrospect now, what will I
mhm,
say to myself?
mm,
What will I really say to myself? But if I take this step, if I do this, and like prospecting into the future, yes, I make a little mistake here, let me make a little another mistake there, but ultimately I come to see that everything is tying up together because I took the step, taking the advantage of the time available to me. That's what I hear from what you have said, and I think it's one thing that we, should I say, in this generation, our generation or the generation coming, I mean, behind us, as it were, need to embrace and see. It's an amazing perspective, I must say. Thank you for this. Now, you are the military. I really want you to say something about the military
mhm,
like minds, and you talk to them.
mhm.
What is it all about?
Yeah, being a military spouse is not for the faint of heart. And I don't say that. I mean, it's funny, but it's almost cliche, and I'm not really saying it in a cliche way. It is really true.
Mm, mm,
Once again, when I look at my personal journey, my personal story, and one of the reasons I'm very passionate about mentoring military spouses and really passionate about that space, I have the benefit of having served. I have the benefit of
mhm,
having been on the other side. And now I am a spouse to someone who is serving. And so I have a little bit better, clearer understanding of just some of the processes, the culture of the military, and all of that. So I didn't have that um, kind of barrier or that challenge that I needed to overcome. It was still different from what I experienced because
mhm,
I was a carpenter and a bricklayer. Then I transitioned to the Navy as a military nurse, and then I worked out of the hospital, and that was almost like civilian life. I have never been stationed on a ship. I did go on two
mm,
deployments to Iraq, and I worked out of a military fleet hospital. But I've never been on a ship. My husband is an engineer in the military, and he's very ship bound. So I visited a ship. I did exercise on the ship, but I've never like gone on a deployment on a ship. So there were aspects that were still new to me.
mm,
Um, the
mm,
the most difficult aspect of, at least from a woman perspective, for me, of being a military spouse have been something I recently kind of termed being a single wife. um,
mm,
it's one thing to be a
mm,
single mother and know that your children are solely dependent on you, and you're the ultimate sole responsible person for everything that happens in your household. You're the head of your household. Being a military spouse and having your husband gone for 9 months, like my husband went a year ago, and knowing that I am not the head of the household, but at the same time, I'm having to fulfill all of the responsibilities of the head of the household, and having to
mm,
transition when he comes back to knowing, okay, now dad is back home, and helping the kids to transition. That's one of the hardest and the most difficult aspect of being a military spouse. Once again, that
mm,
adjusting to the fact that he's gone, and then readjusting to the fact that he's back, managing expectations that when he comes back, life still continues, um, and
mm.
understanding what will change, right? I know the
Right.
last time he deployed, my children are 13 and 9, so they're getting more into that age where they're aware. We're blessed that most of his career happened before we had children, and then they were younger and they were able to
Mhm,
manage some of that. This last
mm,
deployment, I sat them down and said, yes, that's going to be back home, but some things still won't change. Like, oh, we just kind of got into
mm,
this mindset of, yay, daddy's coming back home, everything's going to be so much better. And I had to caution myself to manage expectations, because when everything is not so much better and some things still don't change, like, son, you're still going to have to take the trash out every day. I'm still going to have to drop you off and pick you up from school, because even though that's bad, right? Some things are still not going to change. And that's really important to manage expectations, because it's easy to assume that because he'll be back, everything is going to change. And then when everything doesn't change, or you still find yourself still continue to carry certain things, then there may be that frustration. Another aspect of being a military spouse, especially when they're deployed, is something I call information management. And I always tell my military spouses, I remember being on deployment and calling home to my mom. And while I was on the phone with her, I did not know that she heard a siren alert going off in the background. There was an alert that went off that there was a missile inbound to where we were. And we had to get off, I had to get off the phone. I'm like, hey, mom, I'll call you later. I hung up and I ran to the bunker, like we get into our mop gear and things. And after that, I wasn't able to go home for days. And her going crazy on the other end, I haven't heard missile inbound and haven't heard from me from days. And that taught me a lesson about, the importance of information that's passed from me to her. One. Another experience is information passed from her to me. So we had an incident that happened with our family. My husband has just left to go on deployment. It was the day after Thanksgiving, kind of like in this season where we are now. And I woke up. Yes. And actually, it was probably around 6 years ago. And I woke up in the morning hearing the sound of locust. The locusts are coming. I don't even know what locust sounds like. I have never heard locust in my life. And so I reached out to a friend and I'm like, hey, I heard the sound of locusts. The locusts are coming, but don't be alarmed was, what I got. And and I'm like, let's pray. I'm like trying to pray all this fire prayer of, locust or whatever, but just couldn't flow because it was really such a strange word. My husband had left for deployment that morning, and I went to work to drop the kids off at daycare and stuff. And I picked them up, came back home, and our home had been robbed. Somebody broke into our house and robbed our house. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the locusts that were coming. And so I called the insurance company, I called the cops, I got, things, got things situated. And I'm like, I can't tell my husband, because if I tell him right now, he's going to want to come home. And it kind of doesn't work that way. And he will be very helpless knowing that I'm having to deal with this and he's not home. So, and that also speaks to the importance of community. So I reached out to the community that I had. I reached out to community in church, from church and people that were around me to help me restore order. I called the insurance company and all of that. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later that I told him. And I was like, this happened. The only reason I'm really telling you is because the insurance company needed me to provide a list of things that were missing. And I'm just not sure of some of your things that you took. That's hard. That's heavy. But that can drive someone crazy on the other end when they're feeling helpless.
Can you imagine?
And not being able to react to an information that you passed on to them for the purpose of just letting them know. And that's some of the difficulties and challenges of this space. But the most important thing is establishing community. Every time we have to move, I always have the things I have lined out before I even know where I'm going to live, our house or whatever. I always find out where is the nearest YMCA. I do that for the kids. I do that so they can connect to, the sport events, sporting activities and things like that. So they get to quickly establish a sense of community. Where is the church we will be attending? I already know the church we're going to attend before we get there. We're not going to miss a Sunday and get comfortable and not before we know it is a whole year and we haven't attended church. establish those opportunities to create community even before I get there,
mm,
even before I know exactly where I am going to live, because it
mm,
can be very lonely. It can get very lonely when you're not connected to community. And that puts a strain on your marriage. It puts a strain on your home when you feel like your husband, who is supposed to be your guardian and protector, has abandoned you.
mm. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you clearly, Mercy. I hear you. You know, the community life, I don't know how to describe it, honestly, as in terms of value, it
Mm-hmm.
is immense. And somehow when the enemy here, I'm talking about the, yes, the devil wants to like get at you. What he does is to like take community away from you or take you
Mm-hmm.
away from community. And from what you just said now, consciously, I look for it. I don't wait for it. I look for it in a positive sense, like that
Mm-hmm.
church, that sporting facility, that school that is closer to home, and all of that. And listening to you, who has experienced it firsthand, I can, I mean, not be in denial now. Community is super, and we need it all around us. It's really super. Now, how do you deal with the children? Because obviously from what you're describing to us here right now, daddy is when he's on deployment and all of that away, you have to deal with them, homework and all of that. How do you carry that along with other responsibilities within the military spouse setting? Because I know you're a coach. I believe you are a coach, not I know you are a coach, and you coach people, you train people. So how do you juggle all of this?
The grace of God.
I like that. I like
It
that.
truly is, for suppose say I am what I am by the grace of God, and the grace
Mm.
was not in vain in that I worked the more.
By the grace of God. Exactly.
It
Mm-hmm.
truly
Mm-hmm.
is. And one of the things that have helped me, once again, I'll go back to that same idea of controlling what you can control, and knowing to let go of what you can't
Mm-hmm.
control. Even with the kids, it's prioritizing. I grew up without my dad. My dad came to the United States while my mom was pregnant with me, and for schooling. And then ultimately, he came on a scholarship to study aeronautic engineering in St. Louis University. And I didn't see my dad or even really hear his voice for the first time until I was 7,
Mm.
because it took that long before he was able to get his papers and get things situated to where he could come back home. And then after
Mm.
that, he would we would have to go to like this place in Festac, Nitel, the Nitel office, to go, make phone
Mm.
calls.
To
Back
go and make
then we
phone
didn't have,
calls.
yes, we didn't have like cell phones and things like that where you could just get on the phone and communicate.
That was
Now, go ahead.
prehistoric era, not prehistoric
Yes.
era. Don't go there now.
It is pretty prehistoric. I'm dating myself here a little bit. But now the kids have, my children have that opportunity. My husband has, the opportunity to do the video
Mm-hmm.
chats and, the phone calls and the emails. We have more
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to stay connected even when he is not here, so that the absence of
Yeah.
their father in their lives is not missed. And so, learning from my experience of not seeing my dad for the first time until I was 7, and then after that he would only come home once a year, and then ultimately before we were able to migrate to the US and complete all of that, I was already a teenager, which really put a strain
Mm.
on our relationship. It put a strain on their marriage, where
Mm.
they've both been growing apart for so long, right? And I
Mm.
think in his mind, he couldn't reconcile his idea of growing up with his family to now having a grown up family. It's almost like he's
Mm.
adopting these children. and their
Mm-hmm.
marriage suffered for that. And so before I got married, I would always say, I'm not going to marry someone in the military because I would never put my kids through, being gone and things like that. And here I am married to someone in the military. And so I'm always conscious of, God is funny. I'm always conscious of making sure
Yes.
that I'm always conscious of making sure that the relationship between my children and my husband remain intact. Even when he comes back from
Mm,
deployment, I'm always cautioning him, like, listen, if you need to correct them, at least for a little bit, let me be the one to correct them, because they will only see, oh, we were looking forward to dad. He came home, we had a day of fun, and then now, and because
mm,
that was one of the things that my dad would do. He would come home and then for 1 week or 2 weeks out of the year and be like, this is wrong, and then he'd leave. And I'm like, sir, I don't even really know you, right? And so I'm always like, be intentional about filling up, this love tank and creating experiences, right? That they will remember you for the good
mm,
experiences, not that every time you come home, it's this military, shouting person. And so the most important thing for me is bridging that relationship between them and their dad, so that it doesn't fall into that crack, like my relationship with my dad fell into. And when he's not around,
mm,
I think one of the things that military kids excel at is this sense of independence and this need to grow up. And I have leverage this as a life experience for them, and to help them be more responsible and more independent, human beings. So
mm. Amazing. Mercy, I want to say a very big thank you for accepting to do this with me on the show and share some of your vulnerable moments with us. I mean, it is of immense, immense value, honestly, and I'm grateful for that. Guys, we've been discussing with Mercy, life lessons with Mercy. I know you've gotten, if not one, if not one, something from her. I mean, share with us on the show today. Time is not a friend. It's like we just started talking, but look at it's over 30 minutes. But before I let her go, I want her to share with us where we can catch her, just in case you want to connect with her, you want to reach out to her and all of that. Mercy, can you share with us where we can catch you if we want to?
yes, you can reach me mostly on Instagram at When Mercy Speaks. Is my handle on Instagram at When Mercy Speaks, or on LinkedIn, Mercy O'Hariak. And I look forward to answering any questions or just connecting and chatting with anyone who would like to hear what Mercy has to say when Mercy speaks.
Yeah, when Mercy speaks. I guess I'm going to bring you back on the show, and we're going
Yeah.
to do when Mercy speaks, and that I'm going to allow you really speak like speak, and get some stuff out there. The truth is we need to hear more people speaking, like not negativity now, but sharing those positive ideas, positive moments with the world. Yes, this happened, that happened, but by His grace, this is where I am today. By His mercy, this is where I am today. So can you. So the world need to hear more of this. Guys, I wish I could keep her here for forever, for her to just keep talking and sharing with us those wonderful moments. But you know how we do it here on the show. We'll always bring value to you. So be rest assured, mercy is going to come back, and God is going to show us mercy when she comes back.
Amen.
Honestly, she will.
Amen.
All
Amen.
right. One last thing from you to for my audience. One last thing you want to say to my audience.
I will say, Jesus says that in this life we will have tribulation, and the challenges and the
Mm,
events that will happen in lives are almost a guarantee. And sometimes we think perseverance is like a race, but it is just overcoming many mini obstacles to make big obstacles. And so if I would
Mhm.
think of
Mhm.
a phrase, I would say vulnerable flexibility, that in the days that are ahead, in the days that are coming, I mean, we are all living in this VUCA world. We must all, strive to have that vulnerable flexibility, the adaptability to transform. Like the chameleon, is able to change its color to its
Mm.
environment without really changing its color. It's like it changes its color to adapt
Mhm.
to that particular situation, but its color remains intact. And that's what we are being called on to do
Mm.
in this next season, as the world is changing, as the world is grappling with many different um, issues that are coming up, that we as
Mm.
believers retain our true color, but also be able to navigate and to reflect different colors that mirrors or that allows us to thrive and survive in the environments that we find ourselves in by the grace and by the power of God. So that's my last word.
Beautiful. Yes, we live in that time, just like you heard, but we have what it takes to surmount it, navigate, give out, our color, not losing it now, but giving it out, and
Hmm.
giving it out to that person, to that community, to that neighbor, and all of that. Guys, I am super, super grateful. Mercy, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for this time. I want to let you know that this means a lot to me, as an individual listening to you, and also, my audience listening to you. I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you so much. Guys, time is not a friend,
Thank you.
even if time is here to help to regulate what we do, but you know how we say it on the show. This is the space where we come to lean on one another's experience to forge a positive path. Till I come your way again. Bye for now. Mercy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.